I'm going to start with Avid since it's the most popular non-linear editor on the planet, I believe. That's what I've been told. So I'm going to start with Avid and show you how to apply a Boris effect. Whether we're talking about effects, graffiti, red, anything, it all works the same. And we're going to do that right now in Avid Xpress DV. It's very similar in Avid Xpress, the same in Media Composer. So you'll get the idea here. And what I've got a clip called Water Movie. This is an Art Beats clip that came with Boris RED. And I've got that on the timeline right now. That's the only thing on the timeline. And I've got a sequence with that clip in it. So this is my sequence here, and this is the clip on the timeline. And very easy to add a Boris effect to this clip. What I'm going to do is go up here and get my tools, my effect editor, and my effect palette. Bring those down here. I'm going to size this up a little bit to give me some more room. There's my effect editor. Here's my effect palette. What I'm basically going to do, if all I want to do is add something to the one track of video that I have here, I'm just going to go in here to the effect palette, and I can choose red 1 input, 2 input, 4 input, 6 input, and so on, depending on how many inputs I have. There's also title matte and transition. I'm just going to use the 1 input, and I'll show you how powerful just this 1 input is. You might get discouraged or confused because you think you can only use 1 input. What this is saying is you're going to apply this Boris RED filter to this track here where you're only expecting to see 1 input, and that would be video 1. Okay? So that's it. I've dropped it on my track. Now I'm going to come back out and I go to my effect editor. And all I really have to do with this effect editor is just go ahead and click right here where it says Boris RED 1 input and watch what happens. There's my Boris RED interface. Avid is feeding Boris RED these frames, so it's going to update as I move the timeline. First thing I'll probably want to do is go to my preferences, make sure that everything here looks good the way I want it to. These are ghosted because it's taking Avid's cue. So it's going to basically set up here for me whatever Avid has feeding into it. So it's all intuitive. It knows what it's doing. It's ready. All I really have to do is do my effect. So, and as I mentioned, we've got 1 input, and that's this video 1, which happens to be this water track. Now, I can do just about anything I want to this. If I want to add some more stuff to it, that's really not a problem. I'm going to add some text. Let me see where my tools are. Show toolbox here. And I'm just going to grab this. This is a pretty easy way to put text on here. Boris text. Okay. And I've got this. Now you can see it's on top. The text is on top of the video. So we've added another track. And let me shut this here. I'll come over here. And I'm just going to move this text down here. Now that looks good, but I think I want it to be extruded. So I think I'm going to go ahead and use the 3D extrusion text. Tell a big difference there. See, it's extruded. I'll move it up a little bit. Set my keyframe here. 2 spins on Y. It's going to go back to 0. So that's where it's going to end up. And that's pretty good with me. Except, you know what? I like the back bevels. You see how this is very flat on the back here? If you go this way, you can see the bevel on the front. You can see that bevel on the edge there. But you can't see one on the back, and that's because it doesn't have one. So what I'm going to do is go to the Extrusion tab and click Back Bevels. And that'll give me my bevels on the back of the image as well. And now, as you can see, I've got bevels on both the front and the back. I'll take them off again so you can see. Big difference. If you're going to be seeing the back of the image, you probably want that back bevel on. Okay, so now I have pretty much what I want here. It's turning around, it's beveled on the front and the back. Looks nice. Yeah, that's what I want. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply down here at the bottom. Go back to Avid, and what do you know? There's my stuff there, everything that I did. I close this effect editor. I can move along the timeline here, and it'll show me exactly what's going to happen in my composer window. So now all I really have to do is either render this out and then cut it to tape, or render it out and then make a file, and I'm done. So that is very simply how to add an effect to a clip through Avid Xpress, Express DV, Media Composer, or whatnot. That's using Boris RED, Boris FX, or Boris Graffiti. They all work very much the same. Remember that these inputs do not mean how many tracks you're going to be able to add in Boris. You can add as many as you want in Boris. What this means is how many tracks do you want to feed to Boris. Since we only had one, which was the water movie file, we just chose a one input, opened up Boris RED, and it saw that one input. Well, what happens if you have two? Let's go ahead and see what happens if you have two inputs. Go back out here. I'm going to delete this effect from this track. It's easy to do. I've imported this Tall Trees PCT file. I'm going to go ahead and put this on track 2. Okay, so now I have tall trees over the water, actually covering the water. I'm going to show you how we use this. I'm going to go into here, and this time I'm going to grab the Boris RED 2 input because I've got two tracks that I want to feed to Boris. So I'm going to grab that and drop it on the top track, which is the trees. You'll see it changed the composer window just a little bit. And now let me get my effect palette, my effect editor. Click that open. And look at that. We've got video 1 on top, which is the trees. We've got video 2 underneath. It says V2 here. And if I turn video 1 off, it's the water. So we've just fed two different tracks into Boris now through Avid. You could do the same all the way up to, I think, 6 tracks. And if you want, you can still add media out here in Boris. You can add different colors. You can add still images. You can even add movie clips. It's all up to you and the way you want to operate. So let me just cancel out of this. I do not want to save my settings. I come back, and this is going to be the default image here that shows me I've got a Boris FX loaded. And it's interesting that the default is a transition, a 3D flip-flop transition. Again, very easy to change and do exactly what you want just by opening up the effect editor, clicking on the button, and launching the Boris interface. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller. I'll crop the edges just a little bit. Let's get rid of that black stuff. And for the water movie, let me add a color filter. Let's see. Color balance. Let's make it a little more red. There we go. I'm going to put constant on these. Excuse me. Constant there. And I'm going to hit apply. And instead of that transition now, we have got what I started with, the red with the photo in photo, picture in picture. As we go along here, you'll see that I kind of messed up. I set an interpolation on these edges, on these crops, instead of setting a constant so that it was the same all the way throughout. But that's okay. It shows you exactly what's going to happen. So if you have an effect, you apply it, and it starts doing things you don't want it to, that's probably because you forgot to set a constant interpolation if you wanted to hold that all the way through the effect. But that's basically how you're going to apply a Boris effect to a clip through an Avid software program. Alright, now you're looking at Sony Vegas 4. This is probably the fastest growing nonlinear editor on the planet. I don't have any data to prove that. It won't stand up in court. But I do know that a lot of users are grabbing onto this program. They're checking it out. They're finding out that it's so easy to use and that it does so much that they just can't live without it. This program does everything you'd expect a nonlinear editor to do and more. It even does some compositing. It has a built-in title tool that's very, very good. It does incredible things. With Boris products, it just does more. There is a great class-on-demand tutorial done by Douglas Spotted Eagle that covers every aspect of Sony Vegas 4 you can imagine. He's also written a fantastic book. So if you want to go to classondemand.net and check out Douglas Spotted Eagle's tutorial for Vegas, DVD training series, also his book, fantastic things that you can use to get yourself up to speed on Vegas, which, by the way, doesn't take long because it's a great program. Now, when Boris announced that their latest upgrades to their software would work inside Vegas, the Sony Vegas user community went crazy. They knew that they already had this powerful software tool, but they knew that the addition of these tools would make an incredible difference in the capabilities of Sony Vegas. What they wanted and what they got were a little bit two different things. Because of the nature of Vegas's architecture, the way it's built, it responds a little bit differently to Boris than, say, After Effects or Avid Xpress. What I'm going to do is show you real quick how to apply a Boris RED effect through Sony Vegas. It's the same as any other effect. You just click on your event effects and you'll get this box here. One major thing to note, at the bottom of this window you'll see this sync cursor button. You need to make sure this is out. You cannot have this in or else it's not going to behave correctly. So make sure your sync cursor is out before you launch Boris FX. Alright, and with that said, ours is out, so I'm going to go ahead and launch Boris FX. And then we have our well-known, friendly Boris interface. And we've got our clip here. Now the difference is, as I move this cursor, it's not updating my composite window. That was the #1 thing that really irritated people about the integration between Boris and Vegas software. This feeds 1 frame of video. Vegas is going to feed Boris 1 frame of video. Let me get back out of here and close this up. You can also see that this clip is 3 seconds and 13 frames long. You probably can't see that, but I'm telling you it is. 3 seconds and 13 frames. So when I click this and we launch Boris FX, all of a sudden my duration here says 1 second. So the first thing you need to know is that, #1, it's not going to feed video that you can update. It's going to feed you 1 clip. The quality of that clip is going to depend on your preview window right here. If you've got Best Full selected in your preview window, when you launch Boris FX, you're going to get the best full image here in your composite window. On the other end, if you pick Draft Full, you're going to launch this, you're going to get a draft preview of that first frame. So just know that. It's not going to update anyway, so just know that. The second thing that you need to know is that this duration is not going to change with the clip like it does in Avid, like it does in After Effects. You're going to have to set this. So I'm going to set it to 3 and 13. It updates, and there we've got, it's still not updating the composite window, but it did update the timeline to reflect the change in duration. Now what I'm going to do is to basically show you how this works. I'm going to add a track of text. I'm going to make sure that I do it 1 second into the effect. I'm going to add it right here. Test text. Alright, I've got my test text. That's a little bit difficult to say. And I'm going to start it right at 1 second. So before that, it's not going to come on. After that, it'll be there. It'll stay for, let's say, 1.5 seconds, and then I want it to disappear. Okay? So that's how it's going to look. Of course, when we render it out, when we go back to Vegas, this will be moving. The water will be moving. This test text will stay where it is. Okay, so I've got that, and I'm just going to hit apply, and I'm going to go back to Boris. I'm going to close this, and as you can see in my preview window, it looks pretty much like I wanted it to look. Well, let's see what happens. I'm playing it through, it comes up, goes out, that's exactly what I wanted. Alright, there it goes, test text, and then it's gone. So that's exactly what I wanted. Alright, well, you say, yeah, that's cool, Chris, but, you know, that's kind of elementary. Let's see what it can really do. Well, let's go back in. Okay, so there's the interface that we know and love. We've got our text here, test text. I'm going to go ahead and make this an extrusion, 3D extrusion. Give it a little more depth there. I also want to, let's see, I want to end it with 2 rotations. So it'll spin around. Oh, wait, I need the back bevels, don't I? Yeah, I got to go to extrusion. Back bevels, check that. Looks much better. And that's going to spin around like that. But you know what? What if I want it to fade in and out? Well, let's see. I stop here at 2 seconds and 5 frames. And I go over here. Go to position, and here's my opacity. And at this keyframe I can set it at 100. And I can say I want a linear approach to the next keyframe. And I go to the next keyframe, and I'm going to set this at 0. So it's going to be gone. And that's going to give it a fade. I'm going to do the same thing. This one, opacity, linear interpolation, 0. I'm going to go 10 frames over, make a new keyframe. I'm going to change this opacity to 100, and I'm going to hold it. Excellent. Okay, so now I have this text that dissolves in. It fades in from nothing, it's spinning around, and then it fades back out. Alright, so that's a little more advanced. Now let's go ahead and apply this. We'll shut this and double click this clip. Let's attach this, and then we'll play this through and see what it looks like. It's having a little bit of trouble keeping up, but yeah, that's what I want. It's a real-time preview from Vegas, and it shows me just about what I'm looking for. If I want to, I can render a RAM preview, but I'm pretty sure that's basically what I'm looking for. I can tell that it fades up, spins around, it fades out. That's what I want. So it's perfect. Now all I would have to do is render this out to the file size, file format of my choice, and save it to my hard drive and do whatever I wanted with it, or cut it back to tape. So you can see how easy it is to add just a layer of text, or maybe a whole effect, or whatever you want through Vegas. However, there are a couple of limitations. One, you got to make sure that sync cursor is off. Two, you're not going to get frames of video to update in Boris. And three, you've got to set your duration. Make sure you set the duration of the clip. I'm going to show you how to get around this a little bit. You've got this clip here that's 3 seconds and 13 frames. Now let's say this is a clip that you just absolutely have to see updated in Boris. Okay, I'm going to take this effect off so that I can put another one on. Let's see. I'm going to put this on, Boris RED 3GL. Okay, I'm going to launch Boris RED, and I'm going to change this duration to 313. 03. 13 here. Okay, so 313 is my duration. However, I still don't have any update, and I really need that to update. It's not going to work if I don't. Well, this is a very easy thing to fix. Down here where it says V1, that's video 1 from Vegas, I'm gonna change that. I'm going to change that to movie file. And then I'm going to find the water movie. I'm going to put it on there. Now what happens? As you can see, as I move my timeline cursor, this is updating the movie file. Because it's no longer limited by the Vegas architecture, where it's only seeing 1 frame. It's now seeing the actual clip. Now, what did that really do? It really just took Vegas out of the loop, didn't it? Kind of, but let's go back. Okay, so let's say I've got video 1, it's not updating, and I need it to update so I can add my title. Well, what if I just add another track here with the water movie? Put this underneath it. And I turn this off, and now this is really just a guide. This is really just a guide. So say I want to make sure that my text comes on right when that hits the center there. Right when that hits the center, I want my text to come on. Well, I would never know that by looking at this, since it doesn't update. But by putting a dummy clip in there, I know that I want my text to start right about here, where that meets, right there. Right there is where I'm going to start it. So I'm going to add my text. Boris text. And I want to make sure that it starts right here. Move this up one. Make sure that it starts right there, and let's say I want it to end the next time one of those ripples goes right through the crosshair. There's a good one right there where that big one goes through. I want to stop there, so I stop it there. Okay? Now my text is going to disappear. Now I never would have been able to do that without the dummy clip. And I don't want to render the dummy clip out. So the last thing I want to do is take this water movie, hit delete and get rid of it, turn back my video 1 on, turn my video 1 back on, and now I'll see my text, but I won't see my update until I hit apply and go back out. And I go back out, and now I can see that right when that wave, that ripple, this ripple right here, hits the middle of the screen, my text comes on. Perfect. Exactly the way I wanted it to. And then when that big one comes by, it goes off. See that big one gets right in the middle? It goes off. And that's exactly what I wanted. And I couldn't have done that without a dummy clip. Vegas has a frame server plugin that you can download for free that will also send out data that looks like an AVI file to Boris. Really, it's just referencing back to Vegas, showing, here's my clip. So you can trick it in that way too. If you use the Vegas frame server plugin and you add that AVI file, that frame served AVI file, into Boris RED on the timeline, you can use that as a reference just to get things where you want them, then delete it and render it back out. There's one final thing I want to show you in Vegas. Say you want that text, but you want to be able to move it. At the last minute, you decide, your client decides, more likely, that you don't want this text to come in right when that wave hits there. You want it to come in somewhere else, and you want to be able to see it both ways. Okay, let me fix this for you. Go plugins here, delete this plugin, and instead of putting the text directly on this clip, you're going to add a new video track. You're going to go down to Vegas's generated media, grab a solid color, black, white, doesn't really matter. Throw it on there, size it accordingly. So you want it about 313. Looks like I'm a frame long here. Size it accordingly. And then add the Boris RED or Boris Graffiti effect to this clip. Really, just makes it a dummy clip. Let's see what happens. Alright, you've got a black screen. It says video 1 here. I'm going to change it to text. Boris text. Now I've got my text on an alpha background. And just to make this interesting, let's extrude it, 3D extrusion, and let's make this 313, 0313, so it matches the water movie that we have. And then I'm going to put a spin of 2 on it, so it spins around. Okay? Now I'm going to hit apply. What it's done is it's changed that black media into Boris text. There's no more black media. There's no more black anything. It's just a dummy clip here that I'm using to hold my Boris text. Say I extend this clip a little bit longer, and I no longer want this right here. I want it maybe at the end. Well, that's easy. No problem, because you can just move this as just the text. So instead of putting it directly on the media, we've put it on a separate track and we're able to move it to where we best want it. And that's pretty much all I have about Vegas. There are workarounds for just about everything that you don't like about using Boris in Vegas. It's just a matter of finding them, practicing them, putting them to use, and seeing how they work for you. Okay, we're talking about applying Boris software to clips through different hosts. NLEs are one thing, but we can't forget about Adobe After Effects. This is a fantastic program, and I know you're probably thinking, some people may be thinking, well, you like Boris RED, you're teaching us about Boris RED, why in the world would you be bringing After Effects into the picture? After Effects is a competitor of Boris RED. They're the same kind of program and they do the same kinds of thing. I don't agree. I think in their own right, After Effects and every Boris program is fantastic. However, when you couple these, you can do amazing things that neither software can do alone. And that's what I'm going to show you real quickly, how easy it is to apply Boris RED settings to a clip through After Effects 6. Now I've got After Effects open here, and I've got a clip here called Bubbles AVI. This is a Sony clip that came with Vegas Plus DVD. It was a free gift when I bought that software, so that's where that came from. And it's laying here on the timeline. I'm just going to make sure I have this selected. Bubbles AVI, Effect, Boris RED. Wait for it. Oh, look at that. It's our old Boris interface, and it looks exactly like we remembered. They're the clip here, video 1, and you can see the bubbles, and this will actually update as we go along. Now, not every NLE or host program will do this, but After Effects will. And I'm just going to show you how easy it is to add a filter effect to this. I'm going to go ahead and add a color filter. I'm going to add color correction. And when this comes up, I'm going to set this to say -180. I'm going to give it a nice burnt orange color. I'm going to use the default interpolation, which is ease in and out for me. I don't think that's a good one. I'll use that. And I'm going to close this up, and you can see that over time, this is going to change colors back to the original blue over the course of 15 seconds. Now we've done it. We've added an effect. Now the problem with this is, once you've added that effect, you're hard-pressed to stop there because the text is so fantastic in Boris programs. I just want to show you. Boris text. I'll add a little bit of text here. And I just want to move it down here. And you know what? That's great, but it needs something. Needs a little depth. I'm going to add a little shadow on there. Yeah. I'm going to change up these parameters here. I want this to be about 5 for distance. I'm going to use the constant interpolation. 3.5 is fine too, whatever. 85 here for the opacity, constant. And I'm going to soften this down to 3, constant. So that's a nice, let me get a little more distance here. That's a nice little shadow we got going on there. Very nice. However, you know, this text is going to have to actually do something more than just sit there. I'm going to go to the last keyframe, and I'm going to say, you know what, I want you to spin 3 times. 3 times around. That's a fine interpolation. Default's fine for me, so I'm just going to check it and make sure it's doing what I want. Yep, looks like it's doing exactly what I want. The color's changing, the text is moving, the shadow is beautiful. Keep in mind I've got this on half resolution, half size, draft resolution. It's doing everything I want it to do. That's good for me. I'm going to close it up. Go ahead and hit apply. And here I am back in After Effects. And I've got this stunning vector text that spins with a great shadow and this clip that changes color. And when you get into extruded text, things that After Effects won't do by itself, you're really looking at something special when you've got nice, crisp 3D vector text from either Graffiti or Red in your After Effects project. Really puts a nice touch on it. So now all we have left to do is render it out and take a look at it. And as you can see, we've got a nice, beautiful animation that we made with After Effects and Boris.